الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. سيما بقية الله في الأرضين الرحمة له الفداء for the تعجيل of the فرج of صاحب العصر والأمر the loudest of all صلوات محمد وآل محمد. My respected brothers and sisters, my elders and learned scholars, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. عظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بمصابنا بسيدنا مولانا أبي عبد الله Hussain عليه السلام الله. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by the wasila of Shuhada al-Karbala to hasten the reappearance of the Avenger of Karbala, he who will establish peace and prosperity on earth in the same way that the earth has been full of corruption and tyranny. And we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the same breath that He grants us the blessings and the tawfiq to render service to this Imam who we anticipate his arrival, with the salawat ala Muhammadin wa ala Muhammad. As we mentioned yesterday, one of the most important things, and one of the things which is definitely required of us as a Shia community, or as a Muslim community, or rather as a community of muntadhireen, those who are anticipating the arrival of Hujjatullah fi ardih, is to establish or rekindle our relationship with the Quran al-Kareem. That is because the Holy Prophet said, I am leaving amongst you two heavy things, Kitabullah wa itrati Ahlul Bayt. These two shall never deviate, nor shall they ever separate until they return to me at the pool of Kawthar on Yawm al-Qiyamah. And therefore there is absolutely no separation between Sahib al-Asr wal-Amr or any of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salamullah and the Quran al-Kareem. With that being said, our abandoning of the Quran al-Kareem can be equal and tantamount to abandoning Hujjatullah fi ardih. As Rasulullah said, the Quran will complain to me on the day of Qiyamah, and it will complain to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on Yawm al-Qiyamah, saying, O Allah, the community of your Prophet, after your Prophet, they took me as a jest, huzwa. Meaning that the Quran Kareem only ever leaves the shelves where it gathers dust, unfortunately, throughout the year. When there is a wedding, we want to recite Surah Yasin, or when there is, God forbid somebody passes away, we have a Khatm Quran, or when I need a khira for a job, or for marriage purposes, or wherever it may be, then I go to the Quran Kareem. But otherwise the Quran Kareem doesn't really play or take any role in my life. The majority of our problems can be resolved in the Quran Kareem. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran Kareem itself, that there is a cure for every ailment that we suffer in life. In this Quran Kareem, there is a cure. For example, when we look at the chapters of the Quran Kareem and the revelations pertaining to them, and the ahadith, when Rasulullah wanted to encourage the people to read these chapters more and more, he would always tell us of the benefits, not only of reciting it in the dunya, but the benefits also in the akhirah. There is an actual benefit between us and the Quran al-Kareem, and engaging with the Quran al-Kareem, there is a fa'idah, there is benefit. One example, or of many examples, every surah has its own specifics, but for example, we see that Rasulullah may say to us, those who read Surah Kahf, as we mentioned yesterday, the last 10 verses will never be affected by the Dajjal or by Ya'juj and Ma'juj, which is Gog and Magog, as we have not only in the Quran Kareem, but even in Judaism, even in Christianity, and all Abrahamic religions believe in the Dajjal al-Awar, and they believe in the communities, the two tribes of Ya'juj and Ma'juj, that they will come before the Messiah. And they will create mischief and corruption in the earth, and thereafter there will be a need for the Messiah, so the Messiah will reveal himself. Why the last 10 verses of Surah Al-Kahf? As Agha Mustafa eloquently explained, because these are the verses which speak about the fundamentals of Tawheed, nubuwwah, and mi'ad. Sometimes you go to the doctor and the doctor says to you, وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, okay, it looks like you have cancer or you may get cancer. So therefore, let's discuss, chemotherapy and alternative medicines. Okay, this is one way. Or the doctor can be proactive instead of being reactive. Instead of waiting for you to get the cancer, then he or she reacts. They should also be proactive, which is the direction that medicine today, for those of you who are in the medical field, you will know better than me that today medicine is going in a direction to, rather than treat ailments, try to prevent them in the very beginning. So now there is this big movement about health lifestyle and being more, active and going out for long walks and so on and so forth. And this is what true medicine is. True medicine is not to wait for a problem to occur and then find a solution. True medicine is to find a means to prevent ailments from the very beginning. And the Quran al-Kareem intends to do just that. The Quran al-Kareem doesn't want you to fall into ailments and then it becomes a benefit. No, the Quran al-Kareem wants to be the reason why we never fall into ailments in the beginning. When we abandon the Quran al-Kareem and our only relationship with Allah, with Rasulullah, and with the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salamullah becomes the priest of our community, the mullah of our community, the ayatollahs of our community, then we actually have lost on ourselves, because we don't become active Muslims. We don't engage with Islam as we ought to engage. We become a passive society. How can we understand this better? For example, I don't know much about American sports. I'm from the UK, so I know about soccer, right? As you guys call it soccer, we call it football. There are people who claim to be fans. Yes, they say I'm a fan of. Again, I'll go to the teams that I know. I don't know any American teams, but let's say, for example, Liverpool and United. These are the two most well-renowned teams in the world of Premier League. And someone will turn around and say, I'm a fan of football or soccer, I like soccer. This is the person who is watching every game, and this is the person who, is following all the news of who was purchased and who left the team, and how many points we are behind, and how does it look, how many Champions League have we won. This is what you call a true fan. They engage with the actual sport. They don't just claim to support this team, they actually live and breathe the game. And then you have the other people who, they're flicking through the channel. Oh, there's a game on. Okay, well, I know I'm going to see my friends today at the coffee shop. So everyone's going to be talking about this game. I may as well watch it. Just for the sake of conversation, I pass by. When our relationship with Islam only becomes that I know, at some point I have to get married. So therefore I need to know a few ayat of the Quran al-Kareem. Or at some point, I know there's an exam coming up. So I go to, my friend, and he calls the Maulana, and the Maulana says, well, to help your memory, you should read Ya Hayy Ya Qayyum 100 times, and that's all I'm doing, because I need something from Allah. But the true Muslim is the one who is a true fan of that religion. Right? I'm using the term very loosely here. A true Muslim is one who actually engages with the Quran at all times. A true Muslim and a Muslim is one who engages with the Quran at all times. Is one who takes 5 minutes out of their day to read one hadith about the religion which we say that we follow. Rasulullah had mentioned it so much that one of the best things which we can do in our lifetimes is to memorize 40 ahadith. And this is something that you even find someone at the level of Ayatollah Khomeini, the leader of the Islamic Revolution. Even at that caliber, he went and wrote a book. He says, I'm writing this book, it's called 40 Hadiths. And I'm writing this book in honor of the hadith of Rasulullah, who said it is incumbent upon every believer to memorize 40 traditions and pass them on to others. So it becomes very important for us that if we hope for this Imam, and we want this Imam to come to us, and we want to be of service to the Imam, we don't want to just be, those who benefit from the Imam. No, we want to also benefit the Imam himself, inshaAllah. For that is the Fawzul Azim. When we recite about Shuhada'i Karbala, in the words of Imam Ja'far Sadiq alayhi salam, an Imam who is ma'soom, he's saying is the words of Allah. Ma yantuqu anil hawa is not only for Rasulullah, it's for all the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salamullah, because they speak on behalf of Rasulullah. This noble Imam, whom we take our, madhab from, we call ourselves Shia, Ithna Ashari, Ja'far. We take these teachings from this Imam. What did this Imam say when he stood at the grave of Ashab al-Hussain? They're not from the Ahlul Bayt. We can't say it's too difficult to be like Ashab al-Hussain alayhi salam. Yes, it is difficult, but without any disregard to them, they are ultimately human beings. They are not prophets, they are not imams, nor are they members of the household of the Ahlul Bayt. They're not related to the Ahlul Bayt, except in their companionship and their nusra for the Ahlul Bayt. And Imam Ma'soom stands at their graves. How does he address them? Assalamu alaikum ya ansara dinillah. Assalamu alaikum ya ansar Allah. Assalamu alaikum ya ansara Rasulullah. Assalamu alaikum ya ansara Amir al-Mu'mineen. Assalamu alaikum ya ansara Fatima Az-Zahra Sayyidat Nisa al-Alamin. Assalamu alaikum ya ansar Abi Muhammad al-Hasan al-Mushtaba alayhi salam. Assalamu alaikum ya ansar Abi Abdullah al-Hussain alayhi salam. Bi abi antum وأمي طبتم وطابت الأرض التي فيها دفنتم فيا ليتني كنت معكم فأفوز معكم فوزا عظيما. May my mother and father be ransomed for you. May my mother and father be ransomed for you. Who is your mother? Sayyidat Nisa al-Alamin. Who is your father? Amir al-Mu'mineen. Who is your father? Rasulullah. Imam Ja'far is not the son of ordinary people. No. Comes from the best of households. He says, may they be ransomed for you. I will give up this lineage if I could, so that I could be with you. Imam al-Mahdi says the same thing. Had death and destiny not come between you, O Aba Abdullah al-Hussain, then I would have wished to be amongst your ashab. That I too would have taken in the notable honor of being of Ashab al-Hussain. And therefore we want to be Ashab al-Hussain and we want to give the nusra to Imam al-Hussain alayhi salamullah. We can do so by giving nusra to the Imam of our time. But then there is a dilemma which we will face. How do we know he is the Imam? If I don't know the Quran, if I fail to recognize the Quran that is in my hands, and I fail to recognize its worth, and I fail to recognize its hujjah upon me, its authority upon me, it is the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then how can I expect to give any nusra to the walking, talking Quran? If I don't recognize this Quran, how do I recognize the hujjah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? It's very important to recognize the hujjah of Allah, as Imam Ja'far again says in his dua after the salah. He says, "Oh Allah, make me know yourself. For if I don't know you, I will not achieve what you have created me for. I would fail in the creation which you made me for. And make me recognize your Prophet, for without your Prophet I will not recognize you. And make me recognize your hujjah on earth, for without your hujjah I will not recognize your Prophet." So therefore the beginning of Allah's ma'rifah is the ma'rifah of the hujjah of Allah. Because without the hujjah, I wouldn't know Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. I will know Muhammad by name, yes, but he wouldn't be Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. No. He will be, wal-iyadu billah, in the same way that people have depicted him as a terrorist, wal-iyadu billah. Yes. There are people today in this world who know who is Muhammad, but not the Muhammad of Allah. They know a different Muhammad. They call him a terrorist, wal-iyadu billah. They call him a womanizer, wal-iyadu billah. They call him so many different things, but these are all false claims. For me to know the truth of Rasulullah, I need to know the truth of his hujjah. So therefore it becomes very important that I recognize this hujjah. But I cannot recognize the hujjah of Allah without recognizing the Quran al-Karim. Back to when we were saying that we have to be proactive as opposed to reactive. The Quran al-Karim in these last 10 verses, what does it speak in Surah Al-Kahf? It talks about the unity of Allah, Tawheed in its true essence, Nubuwwah and Mi'ad. These are the three fundamental elements that we have to come to recognize as human beings, as Muslimin. Allah says in the Quran, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, amin. O you who believe, believe in what you claim to believe. If I truly believe that there is Allah, and that there is a Prophet of Allah who came to communicate to me, and that there is mi'ad, a day in which I will be standing before Allah, and I will be held accountable for everything that I do, then I wouldn't get into any kind of haram today. In the same way that if I know this particular food is going to cause me cancer, and the doctor has already said to me, look, we're not going to be reactive, we're going to be proactive. Your lifestyle right now, if it doesn't change, 6 months from now, we'll be looking at cancer, wal-'iyadhu billah. Since I know that there is a mi'ad between me and the doctor, I need to begin to act righteously now with my spirituality, with my health, with my well-being. I have to start taking care of myself now. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala likewise said to us, there is a Yawm al-Qiyamah. There is a day in which we will not do any injustice to anyone. That day, if you do an atom of good in this life, you will see it. And if you do an atom of bad in this life, you will see it. Therefore, I begin to proactively work towards it. Since I proactively work towards these three fundamentals, I will never be affected by the Dajjal, nor will I be affected by any kind of hypocrisy, nifaq, or anything else. Because no matter how strong the temptation is to be drawn away from Allah, I know that there is a mi'ad, and that mi'ad is going to be stronger and more severe in consequence than anything else that I will do in this life. So it becomes very important to engage with the Quran. Now, someone will turn around and say, well, in the Quran al-Kareem, you know, okay, we understand we have to go to the Quran al-Kareem, but there is no mention of Imam Mahdi by name in the Quran al-Kareem. So how do I find Imam Mahdi in the Quran al-Kareem? Imam Mahdi Ajjallahu Ta'ala Faraj al-Sharif is not a name. He's not a name. He is principles. He is what we call qiyam, mabadi. Imam alayhi salamullah is values. Values which you will not find anywhere else except the Quran al-Kareem. Okay? The Imam alayhi salamullah, as Imam Hussain alayhi salamullah says, he says the Quran al-Kareem can be divided into three portions. A portion of the Quran speaks about our fadail Ahlul Bayt. Anything that is good in the Quran is a description of us Ahlul Bayt. فَنَحْنُ الصَّلَاةِ وَنَحْنُ الزَّكَاةِ. We are salah, we are zakat, we are hajj, we are ta'atullah, we are everything that is mentioned of good in the Quran al-Kareem. It is Allah describing us Ahlul Bayt. The other third of the Quran al-Kareem, it is Allah condemning and cursing the enemies of Ahlul Bayt. For they are the khamr wal-'iyadhu billah, and they are all things which are bad in the Quran, that is our enemies. And the final third is the basic rules of how a person ought to live their life. For example, do not steal, do not lie. That's the other third of the Quran. General ahkam for humanity as a whole. Now someone will turn around and say, okay, well that's good. Now what do I do? The Imam is good, so on and so forth. What do I do from there? You see, it's very important that we not only read the Quran, but we live the Quran. We live it. This Quran wasn't sent down just so that it may be recited in our majalis and that's the end of it. No, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to Dawood alayhi salamullah, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَأْمَلُوا صَالِحًا آلِ دَاوُودَ. O the family of David, don't just talk righteousness. Live righteousness and do amal. Work towards righteousness. When, for example, again we try and keep it contemporary, when you as an individual live a certain lifestyle, you immediately will begin to recognize other people who live that lifestyle without you even having a conversation with them. Yes? So for example, if you're into bodybuilding, you will know somebody else is into bodybuilding. Why? Just by looking at them you will recognize it. If you are into football, for example, and you're playing football, in the first 5 seconds you'll be able to tell who is a good player and who is a bad player. Right? But for the person who doesn't understand football, for example, me, I don't understand American football. I look at it, I have absolutely no idea what's going on. I can see it, but I don't see it. Do you see what I'm saying? Likewise, if I don't live the description of the Ahlul Bayt in the Quran al-Kareem, I will not be able to recognize Hujjatullah when I see him. I'll see him, but I don't see him. And it's very important that we recognize the Hujjah of Allah. Why? If somebody walked in right now and said, I am the Mahdi, and I am ready for the movement, who's going to come with me? See, one of two things will happen. Either we will say he is a liar, or we will believe him. In the instance, if we said he is a liar, what if he really is the Hujjah? Then we have abandoned the Hujjah of Allah, yes? We turned our back on the Nusra of the Imam. But what if it's not the Mahdi? What if it's a person who is lying and claiming to be the Mahdi? Because one of the riwayat which we have is that there will be more than 70 false Mahdis before the real Mahdi arrives. 70 different people will claim to be the Mahdi before the actual dhuhur of the Mahdi Ajalallah Ta'ala. Now, what if one of these false Mahdis came out and said, I am the Mahdi, and we went and we gave our nusra to this person? Now we are giving nusra to the enemy of Allah. Yes? Against the Hujjah of Allah. Then how different will it be? You see, 35,000 people stood in Karbala. They saw Imam al-Hussain, but they didn't recognize Imam al-Hussain. They knew he was the son of Fatima Az-Zahra, yes. They knew he was the son of Rasulullah, yes. But they did not recognize him as Hujjatullah fi al-Ard. Why? Because they themselves lived very far away from the Quran. In the camp of Imam al-Hussain alayhi salamullah, or on the night of Ashura, there is a beautiful description. That there was one group on one side, 35,000, who were partying all night long. And then there were 72 people who spent the night in reciting the Quran al-Kareem. The ones who were in the caravan of the Quran al-Kareem gave nusra to the Hujjah. And the ones who were absent of the Quran were the ones who were fighting the Hujjah. So it becomes very important that if we want to give nusra to this Imam, we have to be like Ashab al-Hussain, who were constantly engaged with the Quran al-Kareem. Sheikh al-Ansar, Habib ibn Mudahir alayhi afdal salatu wa salam, sallu ala Muhammad wa Habib, and truthfully, what can one say about Habib alayhi salam? That Imam al-Hussain delays Karbala by a day. Yes? Those of us who read the history, Yawm Ashura was about to commence on the 9th of Muharram. On the 9th of Muharram, the army of Umar bin Sa'd alayhi began to march towards Imam al-Hussain, and Imam al-Hussain sends Abu Fadl Abbas and he says, give me one more day. What is Imam Hussain waiting for one more day? What is he hoping to change in one more day? He knows that he will be killed. What is the Imam waiting? He says, tell them I am waiting for a guest. I gave a promise to a friend that I will wait for him. When Habib alayhi salamullah comes to Karbala, there is what is known as dhajja. There is a commotion in the camp of Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam. Zainab asks Sayyidah Fidda, she says to her, Fidda, go and inquire and see what's happened. Have they begun to attack us? Why is there this commotion? When Sayyidah Fidda alayhi salamullah goes out, she returns, she says, oh Sayyidah Zainab, Habib ibn Mudahir has joined the caravan of Abu Abdullah Hussain. Zainab says, call Habib. When Habib comes and he stands outside the tent of Zainab alayhi salamullah, she says, Assalamu alayka Am ya Habib. He throws his turban on the floor and he begins to slap himself. He says, who am I that the daughter of Fatima Az-Zahra specifies me in her salam? That Imam al-Hussain alayhi salamullah tells Imam Sajjad, bury all my companions together and bury Habib alone for a distinguished merit. What is the distinguished merit of Habib alayhi salamullah? When he fell as a shaheed, Imam al-Hussain, besides the fact that they were childhood friends, he sits next to Habib and he says, Salam am ya Habib. I will testify for you one thing. you used to read the Quran khatam every single night once. Every night Habib alayhi salamullah would read the Quran from Fatiha right to the end. Every night. The description of Ashab al-Hussain are those who were deeply connected with the Quran. Deeply connected with the Quran. Unfortunately, we don't have that connection with the Quran. And it's very crucial for us to have this connection with the Quran Kareem if we hope to have a connection with the Imam of our time, Ajalallah Ta'ala, Farajahu Sharif. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. When we look to the Quran al-Kareem, there is, specifically when we talk about giving nusra to the Imam, and talking about nusra to the Imam is nusra to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let's see, what does the Quran say about nusra? You see, people turn around and say, for example, Ashab Rasul, Ashab Rasul, Ashab Rasul. This is not to be derogatory towards anyone, but this is to speak about the Quran, and inshallah we will be able to take some benefit from the Quran. The Quran al-Kareem has three sciences if we wish to understand it. Sarf, Nahu and Balagha. Sarf means exchange, which is in Arabic words can be exchanged. Nahu is grammar. And Balagha is eloquence. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala picks the most appropriate word in the most appropriate sentence for the most appropriate purpose. When we look in the Quran al-Kareem, the word Sahaba has absolutely no positive connotation, nor does it have a negative connotation. The word Sahaba in the Quran al-Kareem is just a statement of fact. I can say the weather is cold. That doesn't add anything positive, nor anything negative. I am clearly stating a fact that today the weather is cold. Sahaba, even in English when it's translated to mean companions, literally only means that you were in the company of a person or a place. For example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أُولَٰئِكَ أَصْحَابُ النَّارِ. Such are the companions of hellfire. Does that mean that these are people who have a friendship with Jahannam? No. They are in the company of Jahannam. Ashabul Kahf. They are the friends of the cave? No. They are the people who were in the company of the cave. When people turn around and say that Rasulullah said, all my ashab, all my sahaba are like stars in the night, whomever you hold on to, you'll find salvation. This hadith is completely false. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran al-Kareem, by responding to Abu Lahab and Abu Jahl and those people who called Rasulullah Majnoon, they said, Rajul Majnoon, the man is a lunatic. This Quran, what he's saying is all lunacy. He didn't see Jibreel, he's imagining it. The guy's crazy. How did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala respond to them? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَمَا صَاحِبِكُمْ بِمَجْنُونَ. Your Sahabi, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Allah mentions him in the Quran as a Sahabi of Abu Lahab and Abu Jahl. Does that mean that they are also Sahaba of Rasulullah whom we should follow? No, absolutely not. Therefore, the word Sahaba in the Quran Kareem carries absolutely no weight. It is only a statement of fact. Ashabul Yameen, Ashabul Shimal, used in the same ayah or the same surah. Doesn't make any difference. The word which we should look for in the Quran al-Kareem about true companionship is Ansar, not Ashab. Because Allah did not command us anywhere in the Quran al-Kareem to be Ashab al-Rasul, but He did command us to be Ansar. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. O you who believe, become Ansar. How? Give me an example, Ya Allah. What's the example? Be Ansar in the same way when Jesus said to His disciples, Man Ansari ilallah. Who are my supporters to Allah? They responded, we are the supporters of Allah. This is how Allah wants us to give nusra. And inshallah, we will look at that with the salawat ala Muhammadin. إذ قال عيسى بن مريم للحواريين من أنصاري إلى الله Isa ibn Maryam alayhi salam, the ayah before it tells us when Jesus felt deception from the Israelites, the community which he came to. He felt that they are about to betray him. So he made a final call. Who are my helpers to Allah? Man ansari ilallah. What does it mean, man ansari ilallah? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran Kareem, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in tansurullah yansurukum wa yuthabbit lakum aqdam. If you give your support to Allah, Allah will support you and make your foothold firm. Isa ibn Maryam alayhi salam, he wants to give this nusra to Allah. So he asks, Man ansari ilallah. I want to be the first person to respond and say labbaik Allahumma labbaik. I want to be the first one to give nusra to Allah from this generation, this community that I am in. So who amongst you will help me to give nusra to Allah? Man ansari ilallah. Who are my supporters to support Allah? The beautiful thing is that the disciples didn't say to him, we are your supporters. If I said, who are my friends? The answer should come back, we are your friends. If I said, who are my helpers? The answer should come back, we will help you. Isa ibn Maryam says, who are my helpers to Allah? The disciples don't say, we are your helpers to Allah. They say, we are the helpers of Allah. نحن أنصار الله. They didn't say نحن أنصارك إلى الله. They said نحن أنصار Allah. In the school of Ahlul Bayt, we say that the reason why the disciples said we are your Ansar to Allah, as opposed to saying we are your as they said we are the Ansar of Allah, as opposed to we are your Ansar to Allah, is a very deep and meaningful and profound philosophy. That if they said to Jesus, we are your helpers to Allah, then that means our help will only exist as long as you exist. If you're killed, then we'll leave. Because we're helping you. And if you're dead, then there's no one to help. But when they said, نَحْنُ أَنصَارُ اللَّهِ, meaning, O Jesus, with you and without you, we will support the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We will give nusra to the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is the way Allah wants us to be, because He says, كُونُوا أَنصَارُ اللَّهِ كَمَا قَالَ عِيسَى بْنِ مَرْيَمْ لِلْحَوَارِ. Be the Ansar of Allah in the same way that the disciples of Jesus were the Ansar of Allah. Meaning that we should be in a state of readiness to render support to the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether the hujjah is amongst us or whether he's in ghayba. The disciples of Isa ibn Maryam said, Nahnu Ansarullah, O Jesus, you are with us today, but tomorrow you may not be with us. Does that mean we stop supporting Allah? No. Therefore we will support Allah before you, with you, and after you. We should not be in a state, some people mistake this idea of intidhar, that whilst you are in a state of waiting for the Imam, you're supposed to do nothing and you just wait for the Imam and then he does everything. Yes? That's not the way it works. We are supposed to be supporters of Allah, and when we say supporters of Allah, we are supporting the deen of Allah. What is the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? It is adala, it is akhlaq, it is mu'amala. Deen of Islam is not like other religions that simply bases itself on ritualistic and repetitive rituals. No. Rasulullah says, إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأَتَمِّمْ مَكَارِمُ الْأَخْلَاقِ. I was only sent to perfect the good conduct and moral of society. Our deen is akhlaq. Our deen is adala. Our deen is to help the oppressed wherever they may be. Our deen is to help those who are poor whenever we can. Our deen is to give sadaqah even if it's in the way of a smile. Our deen is not just simply that I pray and pray and pray and wait for the hujjah. No. I am supposed to give nusra to this deen. When I'm living in an age when hijab is being attacked by the media, I should give nusra to the deen by holding on to my hijab no matter how difficult it may become. When I am in a time that the Muslim names are being attacked, I should keep my name as Muhammad and don't change it to Mo for any reason. If someone calls me, hey Mo, I say no, my name is Muhammad. I don't make up nicknames for you, don't make up nicknames for me. My name is Muhammad, my name is Hussain, my name is Ali, my name is Fatima. It's not that difficult. People memorize names of basketball players and soccer players and other, sports people who are from different countries, and they have all sorts of different names that are difficult to pronounce, but they memorize them and they don't make mockery of them. Why is it that my name is being made mockery of? It means that it's not just me who's being attacked, it's not a personal attack on me, it is the attack on the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The attack is on Islam. And I'm going to give nusra to that Islam by standing my ground, by standing my principles. Today something beautiful took place here in America. Every time that the Muslims are attacked, nobody comes to our aid. Nobody. But in Pittsburgh, yesterday, there was the unfortunate attack on a Jewish community. The whole world stood with them in solidarity. The Muslim community there could have turned around and said, we don't care, you guys don't care for us. No. The Muslim community raised more money than any other community to. And mashallah, the Jews don't need our money. It's a wealthy community. They don't need our money. But this was nusra to the deen, that they said, well, it doesn't matter. These are people who are suffering. There's going to be funeral costs. We're Muslimin. We're representing what our akhlaq would be, what the deen of Allah should be, what Rasulullah may have done, is to support when people are going through times of difficulty. This is beautiful. This is considered nusra to the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That yes, I don't expect anything from you. And I've never seen anything from you good. In the last 10 years since 9/11, the way we've been treated, how many communities have come to stand with us in solidarity? We haven't received any good from anybody else. But it doesn't mean that we say, because you treat me like so, I'm going to treat you the same. No. I believe in Islam, therefore I must live an Islamic way of life. I believe in the compassion of Islam. I believe that this is a religion of akhlaq. I believe that this is a religion of adab. Therefore I must act according to this religion, whether the hujjah is going to come in my lifetime or whether it will come 1,000 years from now. It doesn't matter. Because in the same way the Ansar of Isa ibn Maryam said to him, we are the Ansar of Allah. Yes, we love you. You are the hujjah of Allah. We want to support you. But more than you, we're supporting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first and foremost. And therefore our nusra for the hujjah is not simply just the nusra for the hujjah. It is the nusra of deen Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is the nusra of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself. Sallallahu alaihi Muhammadin. We speak about the ghaibah of the hujjah. The absence or the occultation of the hujjah. When it comes to the ma'rifah of the imam, the first thing we must come to understand and recognize is that the imam is not absent. The imam is not absent. What do I mean? What's my name?
Hussain.
Hussain. That's my first name? For those of you who see my passport or any legal documents, that's not my legal name. That's my birth name. Obviously those from Iraq would know some of us had to change our names because of the Saddami regime. But the idea is what? The idea is, let's say right now, the FBI or whoever, I don't know why the FBI will be looking for me, but whoever it is comes in here and says to you, hey, we're looking for Mr. So-and-so. And they give you my legal name. Everyone in this room can take an oath by Allah that they've never met that person. I could be sitting right amongst you, but nobody would be able to say that it's me because nobody has seen any form of ID, nor have I introduced myself with that name. I introduced myself with my birth name, Hussain. Equally, when we say that the Imam is in ghaibah, it's not the Imam in person who is in ghaibah, it's the Imam's identity that is in ghaibah. The Imam's identity is in ghaibah. How many names does Rasulullah have? 96 different names. Yasin, Taha, Muzammil, Mudaththir. Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Mustafa, Ahmad sallallahu How many names does Imam Ali alayhi salamullah have? 103. Sayyid Nisa al-Alameen has more than 20 different names. 9 of them are exclusively used by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As Imam Ja'far Sadiq says, for our mother Fatima, there are 9 names exclusively with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Hujjah of Allah has more than one name. We call him Sahib al-Asr, Sahib al-Amr, Hujjatullah fi ardih, Wali al-Amr, Al-Mahdi. His name is also Muhammad. He can also be called Abdullah. There are so many different names for him, right? I could meet the Imam and I could have a full-fledged conversation with the Imam whilst never knowing that it is the Imam himself, because he didn't tell me that he is the Mahdi. Matter of fact, he could even say to me, Ajallah Ta'ala Faraj al-Sharif, in a conversation, Assalamu alaikum, what's your name? I'm Hussain, you are? I'm Mahdi. Okay, yes, let's talk. He leaves. How many Mahdis do I know in the community? I don't assume every one of them is the Hujjah, yes? So the idea is that the Hujjah is not hiding in his person, but in his identity is the only thing that is hidden from us. Example. Musa alayhi salamullah lived in the court of Fir'aun. Yes? For how long? Until he reached his mid-20s, according to some narrations. Did Fir'aun know that that was Musa alayhi salamullah? No. Did Fir'aun call him by any other name? No, he called him Musa. He called him Musa. In the Quran al-Kareem, Man ilahuka ya Musa. Fir'aun is talking. Who is your God, O Musa? The same person who's been prophesied that he's going to kill Fir'aun, Fir'aun raised him himself whilst never knowing that it was him. That is why we say when you read the Quran al-Kareem, if you don't find the word Mahdi, it's very easy. Every time you see Musa, remove Musa and put Mahdi. We've been told that the reason why Musa alayhi salamullah has been mentioned more than any other prophet in the Quran al-Kareem is because Nabiullah Musa alayhi salamullah is the most like Al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan. That their circumstances of their birth is equally the same. Pharaoh was killing the children to prevent Musa alayhi salamullah from being born. Bani Abbas placed the 10th and 11th Imam in a place in Samarra where we call them Al-Askariyin. No, Askar means Lashkar, army, barracks. The reason why we call them Al-Askariyin is because they were surrounded not by just security personnel, but by the entire Muslim army was surrounding them. They were kept in the barracks under house arrest, so that if the Mahdi is born from either of them, they will kill him immediately. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala caused the birth to be secret, and then immediately there was a ghaiba, and he was in their midst and they did not know. And he grew up amongst them and they did not know. And he is amongst us and we don't know. Therefore we cannot assume that the Hujjah is absent, that he's hiding somewhere, or he's gone to an alternative universe and then he will come back. All these, different ideas that people throw around. No, the Hujjah is present. The reason why we don't know much about him is because we don't engage with the Quran, number one. And number two, we don't engage much with the ziyarat of the Ahlul Bayt. We read the ziyarah or we listen to the ziyarah recited in a beautiful voice, but we don't engage with it. What does engagement mean? Engagement is when the Quran Kareem says, أَفَلَا يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. Do they then not think over these words? أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ. Do they then not contemplate on these words? أَفَلَا يَفْقَهُونَ. Do they then not understand these words? When we read the Quran or when we read ziyarah of the Ahlul Bayt, it shouldn't be just beautiful voices or a ritual that on Thursday night we recite Dua Kumayr and we recite ziyarah and then we leave and that's the end of it. No. Absolutely not. It requires us to study it as if we are studying a thesis, as if we are preparing for something. We are supposed to be in intidhar, we're waiting for the Hujjah. I should be like a person who's waiting for my exam to come. I should be preparing for that day. Intidhar means preparation. Intidhar doesn't mean to sit and wait. It means to prepare yourself for a certain event that shall come. One of the best things that we can do for ourselves in relationship to understanding the Hujjah Ajjallah Ta'ala Faraj al-Sharif is to recite Ziyarat Ali Yasin. Ziyarah Ali Yasin is one of the most beautiful descriptions of the Imam Ajjallah Ta'ala Faraj al-Sharif. How and why is even more beautiful. Because this ziyarah is the Imam himself talking about himself. One of the deputies of the Hujjah Ajjallah Ta'ala Faraj al-Sharif was debating the ghaibah of the Imam with the nawasib, with the enemies, the dushman of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salamullah. He was debating with them and he exhausted every argument from the Quran al-Kareem. And he exhausted every logical argument and every rational argument that the Hujjah is actually present. And his ghaibah is only in his identity, not in his personality. And nobody wanted to believe him. They were adamant, and they were disrespectful, and they were disregarding of Hujjatullah. Therefore, he writes to the Imam, and he says, I have exhausted all avenues, and nothing has come of these people. What do I do? The Imam ﷺ writes to him, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, with an extensive paragraph, and then at the end of that paragraph he says, as for the one who does not take guidance from us, then say as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about us in the Quran al-Kareem. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Salamun ala Ali Yasin. This is a ayah from the Quran. The ziyarah begins with the ayah of the Quran, and it is littered with ayat of the Quran al-Kareem that speak about the Hujjah Ajjallah Ta'ala Faraj al-Sharif. Some of the descriptions of the Hujjah in the Quran al-Kareem. Assalamu alayka ya da'iya li dinillah wa dayani amri. Salutations upon you, O he who calls to the way of Allah and he who upholds and makes sure that the commandments of Allah are maintained. Number one. Number two, salutations upon you every time you read the adhan and you give takbir for salah. When the Imam is reading adhan, that means he is calling people to prayer. Salutations upon you whenever you recite the Quran and you give its tafsir. That means there is a circle somewhere where the Imam is giving tafsir of the Quran to people. Whether they know he is the Imam or whether they don't know he is the Imam, that's irrelevant. But we know from the Imam himself that he gives tafsir of the Quran somewhere, to somebody. If we don't engage with the Quran sitting in our home, we have no right to pray to Allah that we can be in that circle where the Hujjah himself is giving tafsir. Yes? It's like saying, I want to win the lottery, but I don't go out and buy a ticket. You have one Quran in the house, you don't engage with it, but you want to sit in the class of the tafsir of the Hujjah himself. It doesn't work. Get your diploma, get your degree, then go after a PhD. Everything has criteria. And then what is it? And when you give tabayyin, when you give bayan, when you actually give a lecture, you give a khutbah, you enlighten the people. The Imam is delivering talks somewhere in the world, we don't know where. So therefore, from this Ziyarat Ali Yasin, we understand that the Imam is active in the dunya. That the Imam is active day and night. He's not hiding. He himself is active. We, on the other hand, are not active. And that is why Rasulullah describes him in the most beautiful ways. He says, in the same way that the sun, the earth benefits from the sun even when there are clouds in the way, and you can't see it, you still benefit from the light and the warmth. Meaning that just because there's a cloud between me and the sun, it doesn't mean the sun goes to a different galaxy or a different universe and it's no longer working on earth because the people on earth can't see it. No. The sun continues to shine every day, whether we see it or whether we don't see it. The sun continues to operate every single day, whether we have ma'rifah of how the sun works or whether we don't have ma'rifah. Because the sun's not contingent on our understanding of it. It's irrelevant. Likewise, Hujjatullah fi ardih is the Hujjah of Allah. He carries out his duties and responsibilities towards Allah, towards the creation of Allah, whether we have ma'rifah of him or whether we don't have ma'rifah of him. So the Imam is continuously working towards the objective, and he will inshallah attain it, inshallah in our lifetime, if we are fortunate. If not, then inshallah we are returned that we may benefit, yes? But it is us who lose out. When we don't engage with the dua, when we don't engage with the Quran, when we don't engage and have the desire for the nusrah of the Imam, it is us that lose out, not the Imam. The Imam is doing his thing. We end up losing out. And we shouldn't be of those people who say, well, I'll continue doing what I'm doing, and inshallah when he comes, I will change myself. No. Because in the same ziyarah, there is another ayah of the Quran Kareem that's mentioned. What is the ayah of the Quran Kareem? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. يَوْمَ لَا يَنْفَعُ نَفْسٌ إِيمَانُهَا لَمْ تَكُنْ آمَنَتْ مِنْ قَبْلُ. When the Hujjah arrives, Allah tells us clearly in the Quran Kareem, and in the ziyarah, the Imam references this ayah. On the day of the Dhuhr, يَوْمَ لَا يَنْفَعُ نَفْسٌ إِيمَانُهَا لَمْ تَكُنْ آمَنَتْ مِنْ قَبْلُ. If you did not sincerely believe in the Hujjah's arrival before his arrival, believing after he arrives will not benefit you in any way. On that day, no soul shall benefit from its faith in the Hujjah if it did not believe in him before. And what else? The Imam adds to it. The Imam adds to it. أَوْ كَسَبَتْ فِي إِيمَانِهَا خَيْرًا. Or that you believed in the Imam and you knew that he was coming, but you did absolutely nothing good in that time to help support the Imam. Therefore, the dhuhr of the Imam will be of no benefit to us. Every time we say, Allahumma kulli waliyika al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan, it is a letter which we are sending to the Imam, like the people of Kufa when they sent letters to Imam al-Hussain. More than 100,000 letters came to Sayyid al-Shuhada. Wasn't it a dua, Allahumma kulli waliyika al-Hujjah? It's exactly the same. They were saying, you are the Hujjah of Allah, come to us and help us. Al-Ajal al-Ajal, Adrikni Adrikni, As-Sa'a As-Sa'a. It's no different to talking to the Imam of our time. But when the Imam came to them, they didn't have the belief in the Imam. They just wanted the Imam to get them out of their problems. So sometimes I'm going through a difficult situation. Now I call on the Imam. I'm not calling on the Imam believing in him, understanding him, believing in his goals, in his objectives, in his purpose. No. I'm calling him because I want him for me. One thing that really is sad, but at the same time ironic. When Trump was first elected into the White House, I remember I'd say 90% of my friends on Facebook inbox, Salam, is this one of the signs of Qiyamah? I promise you, I kid you not. Is this the sign of the war? Okay. Why? Well, now the Muslims are going to be picked out. I said, oh, okay. What about the African Americans who have been killed for more than 200 years? Was that not a sign of the war? When you see oppression of another human being in front of you, that's not a sign of the war. But when it's me who's going through problems, you have to come right now, Imam Mahdi. Now the Imam must come, because now we, the Muslims, are going to be persecuted. It shouldn't be so. The Imam is not there just, the Imam is against every dhalim. The Imam is against all oppression. The Imam is not here just for when the Muslims become oppressed, the Imam is supposed to come, no. So we have to come away from this idea that, we only call on the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salamullah when we need them. Ayatollah Khomeini said it the most beautiful. Stop asking yourself, what can the Imam do for you? But ask yourself, what can you do for the Imam? He said, didn't the Imam do enough for you? That his grandfather brought us Islam? Is that not enough? How much more are you going to ask from him? Didn't the Imams do enough for us when Imam Hussain in Karbala gave the best? Ali al-Akbar, Qasim, Abdullah Radiyah. Sayyid al-Nisa al-Alameen, did she not give enough? Imam Hassan al-Mushtaba, did he not give enough? All these Imams that gave and gave and gave, at which point do we start to give back? Right? So therefore, it is very important that we come to the ma'rifah of the Ahlul Bayt, the recognition of the Ahlul Bayt. And the only way we can have ma'rifah of anything is to educate ourselves on that thing. And the only literature which we have for education about the Ahlul Bayt that is not conjecture is Quran and the ziyarat of the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam themselves. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He gives us the tawfiq and He opens our eyes as well as the eye of our heart, that we may be able to read Ahlul Bayt as they ought to be read and to understand them in the way that they should be understood, inshallah. Ultimately, in failing to recognize the Ahlul Bayt, it means, as we said in the beginning, that we could be supporting the enemies of Allah rather than supporting the Hujjah of Allah. Or that we can abandon the Hujjah of Allah rather than supporting the Hujjah of Allah. These nights belong to the women of Karbala. We remember their grief and we remember their sufferings. And we remember the trials and tribulations which they went through. And we remember Imam Mahdi Ajjallah Ta'ala Faraj al-Sharif for in Dua and Nudba. We know that the Imam doesn't just cry regular tears for these calamities, but he cries until his eyes are wounded and they begin to bleed for the tragedy of Abu Abdullah. When they brought the women of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salamullah, Yazid Anatullah alayh had absolute zero yaqeen in the nubuwwah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And he said his infamous poem, "I wish that my ancestors in Badr would have been here to see, then they would have rejoiced and celebrated, and they would have said, O Yazid, may your hand never be paralyzed, for you killed the best of Bani Hashim," meaning Abu Abdullah Hussain. "Surely no angel descended and no Quran was revealed. Bani Hashim made a religion, and today we are the conquerors." Yazid Anatullah alayh is remembering his ancestors in Badr who were killed at the hands of Amir al-Mu'mineen. And therefore, to humiliate the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salamullah, he called his wife Hinda. And Hinda was a student at the house of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Her teacher was none other than Zainab al-Kubra alayhi salam. She spent many years studying with Zainab alayhi salam. And he did not tell her that this was the Ahlul Bayt because she was a righteous woman. Hinda was married by force to Yazid. She didn't want to marry Yazid Anatullah alayhi. She was forced into the marriage. But she was amongst the most righteous of women. Yazid Anatullah alayhi called her and he said to her, "There is an enemy that wanted to take Khilafah from me, and Allah gave me Nusra over them. So I have conquered them and I killed their men and I brought their women as hostage. I want you to dress in the best of clothes and to wear the most majestic gown and crown, and I have prepared for you a majestic throne, that you may show the enemies of Allah what happens to those who oppose Hujjatullah fi ardi." See how La'natullah alayh, he plays with words. And therefore Hinda sat on this throne with jewelry and servants all around her and a crown on top of her hijab. And then the doors opened and a group of women were brought in, disheveled, tired, exhausted from a long journey from Karbala to Kufa and Kufa to Sham. And they were made to sit on the floor before her. She looked at them and she felt sorry for them. So she said, "My dear sisters, where do you come from?" Zainab alayhi salam said to her, we are from Medina. She said to her, my dear sister, there are many places with the name Medina. Which Medina do you come from? She said, I come from Medina Rasulullah. When Hinda heard the name of Rasulullah, she took off her crown and she sat on the floor. Zainab alayhi salam said to her, you are a queen, sit on your throne, don't sit on the floor. She said to her, no, you mentioned Medina Rasulullah, and out of respect for Rasulullah and Medina Rasulullah, I want to sit on the floor and humble myself before those people who come from Medina. Zainab alayhi salam said to her, oh my sister, and who do you know in Medina? She said to her, I know the most noble of houses in Medina. I know the house of Amir al-Mu'mineen. I know the house of Imam al-Hassan and Hussain. I know the house of Zainab al-Kubra. She said to her, and how do you know Zainab al-Kubra? She said to her, I was a student with Zainab alayhi salam. She says to her, oh Hinda, and would you recognize Zainab if you saw her? She said to her, by Allah, if Zainab was in a room of 1,000 people, I would immediately notice her, for my eyes know her and my heart knows her. Zainab alayhi salam begins to weep. She says to her, oh Hinda, then why have you not recognized me? She says to her, you are Zainab bint Amir al-Mu'mineen? She says, yes. She says, well, where is Abu Fadl al-Abbas? Where is Al-Hussain? Where is Ali al-Akbar? Where is Al-Qasim? You were known to be the woman who had the bravest of men around her. She says to her, if you ask about Al-Abbas, then there is his head upon the spear. And if you ask about Hussain, then go to your husband Yazid. The head which is before him that he strikes is the very head of Abu Abdullah Hussain alayhi salam Allah. Yes, I say Hinda, maybe you couldn't recognize Zainab alayhi salam, but in which state was Zainab after Yawm Ashura? Her own brother Muhammad ibn Hanafiya could not recognize her. Yes, my brothers and sisters, when they brought them back to Medina, when the daughters of Risala came back to Medina, Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salam Allah, when he walked in, his brother, his uncle Muhammad ibn Hanafiya came running towards him, and he grabbed the Imam weeping. And as they began to walk towards the house of the Imam, he noticed there was a woman who looked very frail that was following the Imam wherever he went. Muhammad ibn Hanafiya at one moment turned around, took out some money from his pocket and he gave her. He says, oh beggar, please go away from us. We are a family that is mourning a great tragedy. Imam Zainul Abidin said to him, oh uncle, what are you saying? Do not call her a beggar. Have you not recognized your own sister Zainab? He said, this is not the Zainab that left. She says, I do not blame you if you don't know me, for after what I saw in Karbala, it surely changed me. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. قال لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين. وسيعلم الله آل محمد الذي وآله سيقربون مع حسين يا حسين يا حسين يا
जाओ बिना देखो देखो ना